So you want to buy a football club, not a season ticket, not a replica shirt. The entire club, the stadium, the badge, a century of tribal identity. You imagine walking into the director's box and having 60,000 people roar for a team that now belongs to you. It sounds like the greatest purchase on earth. It is not. Barcelona, one of the most famous football institutions on the planet, recently carried over €1 billion in debt. The 20 clubs in the English Premier League, the richest league in world football, posted a combined pre-tax loss of more than £600 million in a single season. The purchase price is just the cover charge. The real cost starts after you wire the money. Here is the first inversion. You think you are buying a business. You are actually buying the right to fund one. Before the Premier League lets you sign anything, you have to pass what is called the Owners and Directors test. You must prove you have enough personal wealth to cover the club's operating costs for the next 12 months, no matter what the team earns on the pitch. The league is not asking whether you can afford the purchase. It is asking whether you can absorb the losses that come after. The entry price depends on which door you choose. A lower league English club, somewhere in the fourth tier, might cost £5 million to £50 million. A mid-table Premier League club runs several hundred million. Want one of the true giants: Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal. You are stepping into a bidding war that starts around £3 billion and climbs towards £6 billion. During the recent sale process at Manchester United, the Glazer family held out for a valuation close to £6 billion, more than the market value of many of the largest companies in America. But the purchase price is not actually the number the league cares about most. Before your money is accepted, the league investigates your source of wealth, your criminal record, your business history, and your ability to fund future losses. This is not a rubber stamp. In 2020, a proposed £300 million takeover of Newcastle United by a Saudi Arabian-led consortium collapsed after months of scrutiny over piracy concerns and state involvement. It only went through a year later, after sustained legal and diplomatic pressure. You can have the billions ready. The sellers can be ready to sign. The league can still say no. Even once you pass, the commitment does not stop at the purchase price. The league now requires you to deposit a large portion of the club's forecast operating costs into a secured account before you take control. You are pre-funding the losses you already promised to cover. You are wiring money into a cage before you have attended a single match as owner. Say you clear all of that. The shares are in your name. You own the club. Except ownership and control turn out to be two different things. What you actually hold is the legal right to appoint directors and make executive decisions inside a system you do not design. You do not own the league. You do not own the rules. You do not even own the broadcasting contract which generates most of your revenue, because the Premier League negotiates that centrally and hands out the money by its own formula. You cannot negotiate your own television deal. You cannot simply leave and start a rival competition either. We know this because 12 of the richest clubs in Europe tried exactly that in April of 2021. They announced a breakaway European Super League with guaranteed spots for the founding members. Within 48 hours, the whole project collapsed. Not because of regulators, and not because of courts. Fans of the English clubs, the same people who buy the tickets and the shirts, protested in the streets, blocked team buses, and threatened to burn the stadiums down. The billionaire owners of Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Chelsea were forced to apologize on camera. The customers fired the owners. Then there is the asset you were counting on most, the players. Sign a 22-year-old striker for £50 million on a 5-year deal, and on paper that looks like your biggest asset. But a player is not a machine. He has an agent, a social media following, and a hamstring that can tear in the 37th minute of a meaningless cup tie. If he plays brilliantly, his agent demands a new contract or a move to a bigger club. If he plays badly, nobody will match his wages, so you cannot sell him either. Let his deal run into its final year, and his transfer value collapses towards zero. He can simply walk out for free and sign with your closest rival, and you receive nothing for the £50 million you paid. You own the shares, and maybe the stadium and the training ground. You do not control the one thing that decides your revenue, which is the score on a Saturday afternoon, and you do not control the players who produce it. Now watch what happens once the money starts arriving. A top Premier League club can generate over £600 million a year, and it comes from 3 places. Matchday income covers tickets, hospitality, food, and stadium tours. For a club the size of Manchester United, with a 74,000-seat stadium, that alone can top £100 million a year. Broadcasting rights add more. The Premier League television deal is the richest in world football, and a top club can pull in over £150 million from it alone. Commercial revenue rounds it out. Shirt sponsorships, kit deals, merchandise, and global partnerships can exceed £300 million for the biggest brands. £600 million sounds like a machine. Now subtract. Player wages are the first and largest cut, routinely consuming 60 to 80% of revenue at an elite club. That is over £400 million gone before a single other bill is paid. Then comes amortization, the accounting cost of spreading a transfer fee across a contract. Buy a player for £100 million on a 5-year deal, and £20 million hits your profit and loss statement every single year. Assemble a squad worth £500 million in transfer fees, and your annual amortization charge alone can exceed £100 million. It is a cost that exists only on paper, but it still wrecks your reported profit. Agents take their share too. Clubs worldwide spend a record of close to $900 million on agent fees in 2023, and a single transfer can hand 10% of the fee straight to a representative who does not even work for you. The subtractions do not stop there either. After the agents come the ordinary operating costs, stadium upkeep, travel, security, academy operations, scouting, administrative staff, insurance, utilities. For a large club, that alone can eat another £100 million a year. And if your purchase was leveraged, add debt service on top of it. The Glazer family's 2005 leveraged buyout of Manchester United has cost the club over £1 billion in interest, fees, and dividends. Money that could have gone into players or the stadium went into servicing the debt used to buy the club in the first place. Add it all up. $600 million in revenue, minus $400 million in wages, minus $100 million in amortization, minus agent fees, minus operating costs, minus debt interest. The number at the bottom is often negative, and that is before you, the owner, have taken a single pound out of the business. So the visible business loses money almost by design. There is exactly one place a football club can reliably turn a profit, and it is not on the pitch. It is the player trading operation, buying low and selling high. Develop a young player through your academy, give him first-team minutes, then sell him to a bigger club for a huge fee, and the entire transfer amount drops straight to your bottom line as pure profit, because there is no remaining book value left to subtract. Brighton and Hove Albion, a mid-table Premier League club, has built its entire model around this. They scout undervalued talent globally, develop it, and sell it on to the traditional giants for enormous fees. In the 2022 to 2023 season, Brighton posted a pre-tax profit of over £120 million, almost entirely from player sales. That is the hidden engine most fans never see. But there is a matching trap on the loss side, and it is called the wage ratchet effect. Sign one-star player at £200,000 a week to chase trophies, and you have just set a new floor. Every other player and every other agent in the squad now wants parity, so the next signing asks for $250,000. Within 3 seasons, your wage bill can double, while your league position barely moves. Now you are locked into elite wages for a squad that finishes mid-table, and you cannot easily offload these players either. Only a handful of clubs on earth can afford their salaries. If those few clubs do not want your underperforming assets, you are stuck. You are paying a Champions League wage bill on Europa League revenue, and the contracts sit on your balance sheet like time bombs, draining your cash every single week. No case shows this trap more clearly than Chelsea. In May of 2022, a consortium led by American investor Todd Boehly and the private equity firm Clearlake Capital bought the club for £3.1 billion, the most expensive sports team sale in history at the time. The new owners came out spending. Across 3 transfer windows, Chelsea put over £1 billion into new players, including a British record fee of £106 million for Enzo Fernandez and £115 million for Moises Caicedo. They also handed young players unprecedented 8-year contracts. It was a tactic designed to spread the amortization cost over nearly a decade and stay inside the league's spending rules. On paper, it looked like a bold, modern, private equity approach to football. Buy the best young talent in the world, lock it down long-term, and build a dynasty. The problem is that football is not a spreadsheet, and the players still had to perform. They did not. Chelsea finished 12th in the 2022 to 2023 season and 6th the year after. They missed out on the Champions League and the roughly £100 million a season that competition brings in broadcasting and prize money. The trap snapped shut. The 8-year contracts, not the spending itself, were the real mistake. They locked Chelsea into paying huge wages for years to players who were not producing Champions League revenue. And because the deals were so long and so expensive, almost no other club wanted to take them on. Facing a breach of the league rule that caps losses at £105 million over a rolling 3-year period, Chelsea were forced into a fire sale. Not of the expensive new signings, since nobody wanted those, but of their own academy graduates. Mason Mount went to Manchester United. Lewis Hall went to Newcastle. Conor Gallagher went to Atletico Madrid. Selling a homegrown player is pure profit on the books. Chelsea sold their own future to pay for the mistakes of their present. A bad season is one thing. There is something far worse, a single outcome that can destroy an owner inside 12 months, and it is called relegation. In the English pyramid, the bottom 3 Premier League clubs each season drop into the second tier, the Championship. It is a financial catastrophe, not just a sporting one. Premier League broadcasting money runs over £150 million a year per club. In the Championship, that number falls to roughly £8 million. That is not a typo. Over £140 million of annual revenue disappears overnight, while the costs do not move at all. Your star striker on £200,000 a week still expects his money every Friday. Last summer's signings still carry the same wages and the same amortization charges. You are now paying Premier League costs on Championship revenue, a mismatch that almost no buyer prices in before it happens. Relegated clubs do get parachute payments, roughly £40 million in the first year. But that barely dents a hole worth several times more, and it only slows the descent rather than stopping it. The death spiral runs the same way every time. You have to sell players, but every buyer knows you are desperate and offers a fraction of what you paid. Your highest earners will not leave either, because nobody else will match their wages. You end up burning through your own fortune at £5 million to £10 million a month. You cannot sell the club because its value has collapsed, and you cannot stop the losses because the contracts are guaranteed. Sunderland lived through exactly this. A proud club with a huge stadium and a Premier League history suffered back-to-back relegations and dropped all the way to the third tier. Owner Ellis Short reportedly lost hundreds of millions of pounds before essentially giving the club away just to escape the liabilities. The catastrophic risk was never losing a match. It was being locked inside an asset that devoured his wealth while he watched. Say you survive all of it. You fund the losses, navigate the wage ratchet, and dodge relegation. Eventually you want to cash out, and this is where the last trap appears. You can only sell to someone richer and more irrational than you. The buyer pool for a Premier League club is tiny, because you are not selling a profitable business. You are selling a trophy asset that requires the next owner to start funding losses immediately. Recent deals value top clubs at 5 to 7 times annual revenue. A club generating £600 million a year might fetch £3 billion to £4 billion, but who is actually writing that check? Even finding a willing buyer does not end it. The old buyer, a local billionaire chasing prestige, is a nearly exhausted pool, and the new buyers are sovereign wealth funds, American private equity consortiums, and the occasional tech billionaire looking for a new hobby. When the Glazers finally opened Manchester United to a sale, the only serious bidders were a Qatari royal and British chemicals billionaire Jim Ratcliffe. The Qatari bid fell apart, and Ratcliffe ended up with only a minority stake, never the full exit the Glazers wanted. Even with a buyer in hand, the league gets a veto, running the same owners and directors test on your exit that it ran on your entry. The Newcastle United takeover was blocked for over a year before it finally cleared, only after geopolitical pressure and legal threats. Your exit is not a private handshake between two willing parties. It is a public regulatory process, where the league, the fans, and sometimes governments all get a say. The whole industry is drifting toward one model, the multi-club network. Groups like City Football Group, which owns Manchester City and a dozen other clubs worldwide, or Red Bull, which runs clubs across Germany, Austria, and the United States. These networks spread player trading risk across several balance sheets at once. A talent gets signed at one club, developed at another, and sold from a third, and the profit stays inside the network the whole time. For a single club owner, that is the grim future. You are competing against globalized talent processing machines, while still trying to balance one wage bill alone. The exit door is narrow, the buyer pool is tiny, and the league holds the key the whole time. Buying a football club is easy. Getting out with your fortune intact is nearly impossible. So what did you actually buy? Not a business, since a business generates profit. You bought a mechanism that converts your personal wealth into wages, agent fees, and debt service. It hands back a small fraction only if you successfully sell your best young talent to a bigger club. You did not buy control either. You bought a seat at a table where the league writes the rules. The fans hold a veto they have already used, and your most valuable assets can walk out for free the moment a contract expires. You cannot set your own ticket prices against the market. You cannot negotiate your own television deal. You cannot even guarantee which competition you will be playing in next season. You did not buy a safe asset. You bought leveraged exposure to a single result every Saturday afternoon. Win enough, and you survive. Lose too many, and the trapdoor opens, revenue collapsing while costs stay fixed, burning your own cash with no way to stop it. You are the guarantor of last resort, exactly as the league designed you to be. You did not buy an exit either. You bought something you can only sell to someone richer and more irrational than you, subject to a league that has already shown it can block a sale for over a year. The pool of buyers is a handful of sovereign wealth funds and a few dozen billionaires, most of whom already own a club. When you finally want out, there may be no one left on the other side of the trade. Owning a football club is not owning a sports team. It is owning a highly leveraged, emotionally charged talent speculation fund. It is regulated by a cartel, held hostage by its own customers, and the only reliable profit comes from selling your best investments to a bigger fund. The stadium, the shirts, the roar of the crowd, that is the customer acquisition funnel. The real business is the machine underneath it, quietly deciding whether you keep your fortune or lose it one Saturday at a time.